Chapter 13:13. Lu Ming, the Floating Mountains sect has moved to the 100 Beast tribe. Yuexian Martial Emperor was beautiful, but she let out a sigh filled with loneliness. What happened? Also, why did they say that I died in the godly ruins continent? Lu Ming asked, full of doubts. Lu Ming, it's a long story. Let's return to the 100 Beast tribe and I'll tell you in detail. Xie Luan said. All right. Lu Ming nodded and the group headed toward the 100 Beast tribe. After arriving at the 100 Beast tribe, Lu Ming felt that the atmosphere was not right. The 100 Beast tribe was filled with various formations. Every corner was guarded by experts and many armored soldiers patrolling the area. The atmosphere was tense, as if a great battle was about to break out. When Lu Ming left the Divine Wilderness continent, although the Divine Wilderness continent was also embroiled in a war and Northern Plains had just experienced a war, the atmosphere back then was not as solemn as it was now. It felt like a great battle of life and death was about to break out at any moment. Lu Ming was even more curious, but he could only suppress his doubts and ask them later. The news of Lu Ming's return spread rapidly in the 100 Beast tribe, causing an uproar. Lu Ming and the others arrived at a meeting hall in the 100 Beast tribe. Everyone sat on two sides of the hall. There were 2 seats at the front, and Xie Luan sat on one of them. Lu Ming, please. Xie Luan raised his hand and signaled Lu Ming to take a seat. Lu Ming did not stand on ceremony and sat down beside Xie Luan. However, he did not notice the displeasure in the eyes of Chu Luo, Mo Yi, and the other martial emperors. After everyone sat down, more people entered the hall. They were all higher-ups, and the weakest among them was a martial highness realm expert. Soon, there were more than 10 people in the hall. Senior Xia, why did the armored soldiers say that I died in the godly ruins continent when I returned? Lu Ming could not help but ask. Lu Ming, not long ago, the sea-crossing flying ship that brought you to the godly ruins mainland returned. The experts of the divine sect in the godly ruins mainland said that you, Lu Ming, offended the sky pride of the heavenly god sect in the godly ruins mainland. You were killed by the sky pride of the heavenly god sect. Xie Luan said. Lu Ming frowned. The experts from the Holy Gate were obviously the experts from the Southern God Palace who had sent Long Chen and the Underworld Child back. But why would the people from the Southern God Palace say that? They said he was killed. Could it be that the people from Southern God Palace were experts from the Mu clan? Lu Ming's heart stirred. When Long Chen, Underworld Child, and Scrupulous Monk, and the others left for the Divine Desolate Continent, it was probably when Lu Ming's group was being chased by the Mu family's patriarch. Therefore, the people from the Southern Divine Palace believed that Lu Ming was dead for sure. When they arrived at the Divine Desolate Continent, they said that Lu Ming had already been killed. Lu Ming guessed. What about Long Chen, Underworld Child, and the Western Desert Holy Monk? No one came out to say anything. Lu Ming asked. No. Moreover, only 3 of them came back. They are Underworld Child and the 2 holy monks from the Western Desert. Long Chen is nowhere to be seen. When the 3 of them came back, they spread the news that they were in seclusion and did not say a word to the outside world. Xie Luan said. Long Chen did not come back. Lu Ming raised his eyebrows. Could it be that Long Chen was also assassinated like them? Moreover, from the looks of it, Underworld Child and the others must have been warned by the Southern Divine Palace and did not say a word. Therefore, the news that Lu Ming had been recruited as a disciple by the Divine Dragon Valley of the Yuanlu continent was naturally kept a secret. Lu Ming, did you really offend the sky pride of the heavenly divinity sect of the Yuanlu continent? At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded. Lu Ming looked in the direction of the voice. It was Chu Luo. He was currently staring at Lu Ming. Lu Ming raised his eyebrows slightly. In the past, Chu Luo had always addressed him as General Lu. However, he was now directly addressing Lu Ming by his name. Moreover, there was a hint of questioning in his tone. Everyone's gaze also fell upon Lu Ming. Lu Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. With his intelligence, he naturally knew what was going on. In the past, they had taken a fancy to Lu Ming's talent and thought that Lu Ming could join the Yuan continent's great sects and help them in the future. However, the people from the Southern Divine Palace had come and said that Lu Ming had offended the sky pride of the Yuan continent's great sects and had been killed by them. Although Lu Ming was still alive, he could not join the Yuan continent's great sects since he had offended the sky pride of the Yuan continent's great sects. Since he could not join the Yuan continent's great sects and had offended the sky pride of the Yuan continent's great sects, their attitude towards Lu Ming naturally changed. That's right. I have offended the sky pride of the Divine Dragon sect. Lu Ming answered truthfully. Lu Ming, it's not that I want to criticize you. Although you have some talent, you should know your limits and know your limits. Your talent is not bad in the Divine Wilderness continent, but it's nothing in the Yuan continent. How dare you offend the sky pride of the Yuan continent's great sects? It's fine if you offend them, but don't drag us down with you. Chu Luo spoke coldly. Lu Ming, I want to know if the people of the Yuan continent's great sects know about your return? Mo Yi spoke as well. Chu Luo, Mo Yi, that's enough. Lu Ming is my ally. At the side, Xiao Luan frowned and berated them. Demon ancestor, but Chu Luo still wanted to say something. I said that's enough. Xiao Luan's gaze turned cold. Chu Luo shut his mouth and did not dare to say anything else. However, his gaze towards Lu Ming was filled with faint disdain. After failing to join the Yuan continent's great sects, Lu Ming was just a junior, a martial artist at the spiritual god realm. He looked down on Lu Ming from the bottom of his heart. Lu Ming smiled slightly and did not explain. He had defeated the sky pride of the celestial divinity sect and obtained first place in the test. He had even joined another Yuan continent's great sects, the Divine Dragon Valley. Senior Xia, what's the current situation in the Divine Wilderness continent? Why do I feel that the 100 Beast tribe is heavily guarded? Moreover, all the seniors are gathered there? Lu Ming asked another question in his heart. In the past, many experts were guarding different places in the northern plains. However, they seem to be gathered at the 100 Beast tribe now. Lu Ming, the current situation in the Divine Wilderness continent has changed greatly. Xiao Luan frowned and said when that was mentioned. The situation has changed greatly? Because of what? Lu Ming asked. Because of DE. Xiao Luan said. DE? Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. DE was so powerful that he could change the situation in the Divine Wilderness continent? Yes, because of DE. When you left, the Heavenly King token was also taken away by the experts of the Divine Sect. However, the Ancient Saint Dynasty and the Divine Army have a deep grudge against each other. It's difficult for them to stop fighting. The other overlords are also fighting with each other. The central continent is still in chaos, but the situation is still good. However, a few months ago, DE suddenly attacked. Xiao Luan explained in detail what had happened during this period of time, especially about Martial Emperor DE. It turned out that everyone had been deceived by Martial Emperor DE for so many years. Not only was Martial Emperor DE powerful, but he was also secretly developing his forces. Chapter 13-14. The sovereigns of the southern underworld had been subdued by Martial Emperor DE at some point in time. The entire southern underworld was under Martial Emperor DE's control. The Eastern Wasteland Heavenly Corpse sect was also created by one of the sovereigns of the southern underworld. The reason why they kept fighting with the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace was to attract attention so that the other overlords would not care too much about the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace. This way, DE could keep increasing his strength in secret. When the time was right, he could start the war. A few months ago, Martial Emperor DE finally could not hold back anymore. He led the southern underworld's army to attack the central continent. In a short period of time, many overlord forces were destroyed by Martial Emperor DE. Martial Emperor DE's strength increased greatly. He even sent out experts to help the ancient Saint Dynasty's Xia clan deal with the Heaven Suppression Army. After a shocking battle, the Heaven Suppression Army suffered great losses and retreated to the border of the northern plains. They joined forces with Xiao Luan to deal with the strong enemy. Therefore, during this period of time, the atmosphere was unprecedentedly tense. All the experts of the northern plains gathered at the 100 Beast tribe to deal with the attack of the strong enemy at any time. After hearing this, Lu Ming was shocked. At the same time, he understood some things. He understood why the Eastern Wasteland Heavenly Corpse sect could rise in such a short period of time and compete with the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace. It was all under Martial Emperor Di's arrangement. Of course, their strength increased quickly. When they were fighting for the Heavenly King's token, the Eastern Wasteland and the Southern Underworld did not make any moves. At that time, Lu Ming and the others found it strange. Now, it made sense. The Eastern Wasteland and the Southern Underworld were basically under Martial Emperor Di's control. At that time, the time was not right. If Martial Emperor Di did not give the order, the Eastern Wasteland and the Southern Underworld would not make a move. Even if Di and the experts of the Southern Underworld joined forces, they should not be that strong. If the many overlord forces of the Central Continent joined forces, they would have many sovereigns. How could they be defeated by Di? Although Di is strong, the Heaven Suppression Army has a deep foundation. There might be experts who could contend with him. How could he be defeated so easily? Lu Ming asked the question in his heart. Although Di's combat ability was strong, even if Nanming was included, there wouldn't be too many sovereigns. There wouldn't be more than 7. Some of the more powerful overlord forces in the Central Continent would have 2 sovereigns, or even more. If several overlord forces joined forces, they wouldn't be destroyed so easily. It's because Di's helpers have arrived. Di's cultivation is at the peak of the LV2 Martial Royal Realm, and he has a royal spiritual weapon. Most importantly, 2 terrifying experts have appeared beside Di. They are both at the peak of the LV2 Martial Royal Realm, and they also have royal spiritual weapons. Xiao Luan said with a grave expression. What? Lu Ming was shocked. There were 2 experts at the peak of the second-level Martial Emperor Realm beside Di. The peak of LV2 Martial Royal Realm was definitely the pinnacle of existence in the Divine Wilderness Continent. Before Lu Ming went to the Divine Ruins Continent, there were only Xiao Luan and Di who were at the peak of LV2 Martial Royal Realm. But now, how could there be 2 experts at the peak of the second LV of the Martial Royal Realm beside Di? What was even more shocking was that the 2 of them were even in control of Emperor-level spirit weapons. Emperor-level spirit weapons were very rare, and it was difficult for most emperors to own one. At the same time, Lu Ming also understood the current situation in the Divine Wilderness Continent. Although there were not many emperors around Di, their high-level battle strength was too strong. Di himself and the 2 experts at the peak of LV2 Martial Royal Realm could absolutely sweep away the overlords of the Divine Wilderness Continent. No one could defeat them. No wonder the atmosphere in the northern plains was so solemn and tense. In the northern plains, only Xiao Luan was at the peak of LV2 Martial Royal Realm. Now, Di's army is attacking the few overlord forces in the Central Continent. In recent days, I heard that they are besieging the World Academy. The World Academy is in danger. Xiao Luan said. The World Academy. Lu Ming's eyes suddenly brightened, emitting a strong fighting desire. Lu Ming, what do you think? Xiao Luan asked. Rescue the World Academy. Lu Ming said decisively. Rescue? Lu Ming, how can we rescue them? Now that Di is powerful and has many experts, we can't even protect ourselves. How can we rescue them? Chu Luo sneered, his tone full of disdain. The rest of the people shook their heads slightly, obviously agreeing with Chu Luo. Below, Yan Kuangtu wanted to say something several times, but stopped. He seemed to have something to say to Lu Ming, but in the end, he held back. Without the lips, the teeth will feel cold. I'm sure everyone understands that World Academy is not weak. If it is attacked by Di, it will only increase Di's strength. If it is saved by us and joins hands with us, it will increase our strength. Only then will we be able to contend against DE. Lu Ming said. Although it's the truth, truth is truth. In fact, our strength is not enough. Only by defending with all our strength can we have a chance of survival. If we rescue them and lead DE to attack in advance, Lu Ming, will you take responsibility? Chu Luo sneered. I'll take responsibility, I'll take responsibility. Lu Ming said. You'll take responsibility? Ridiculous. Lu Ming, to put it bluntly, what qualifications do you have to take responsibility? Although you have allied with the demon ancestor, in this world, strength is everything. If you don't have strength, you'd better behave. Chu Luo laughed heartily. This sentence was clearly belittling Lu Ming. Xiao Wan frowned, thinking that Chu Luo had gone too far. However, he did not agree to rescue the World Academy now, so he pondered for a moment and did not speak. Lu Ming, I can tell you clearly that if you want to rescue the World Academy, you have to do it yourself. We won't do anything, in case DE attacks in advance. Chu Luo said. I'll go with Lu Ming. Yan Kuangtu stepped out. I'll go with Lu Ming too. I'll go too. Then, two voices sounded in succession. They were the Barbarian Emperor of the 100 Beast Tribe and Uxian Martial Emperor of the Floating Mountain. No, you're not allowed to go either. You're in the same boat as us now. If you go, you'll weaken our strength and it'll also lead to DE's attack in advance. Chu Luo said loudly. You, Yan Kuangtu, the Barbarian Emperor and the others looked pale. You don't have to go. I alone am enough to rescue the World Academy. Lu Ming's voice sounded abruptly. Everyone was stunned. Lu Ming alone. Rescue the World Academy? How was that possible? Lu Ming, it seems that your judgment has changed after you went to the continent of God's ruins. You're becoming more and more ignorant. It's no wonder that you even dared to offend the elites of Yuanlu's major sects. Chu Luo sneered. Chu Luo felt uncomfortable when he thought of how he had obeyed Lu Ming's orders in the past. At that time, he thought that Lu Ming could join Yuanlu's sect and he saw the future of Lu Ming. That was why he obeyed Xiao Wan and obeyed Lu Ming. He was an emperor, but he obeyed a young man in his 20s. He had always felt uncomfortable. Chapter 13-15. At this moment, Lu Ming sneered. Since he returned, Chu Luo had been mocking and ridiculing him non-stop, which had already made Lu Ming a little unhappy. Lu Ming looked coldly at Chu Luo and said, "Which eye of yours saw me overestimating myself? Also, do you think you're great just because you're an emperor? In my eyes, you're not worth mentioning." What did you say? Chu Luo was furious and suddenly stood up from his seat. The might of an emperor erupted from his body, and a terrifying pressure pressed down on Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming was as calm as a breeze, sitting there motionlessly. Chu Luo, sit down. Xiao Wan berated. Demon ancestor, you've seen it too. This person is arrogant and doesn't even take an emperor seriously. I used to think that he was a top figure, but now it seems that I was completely wrong about him. Chu Luo said. I'm not looking down on an emperor, I'm looking down on you. Lu Ming sneered. You're looking down on me? Good, good, good. I'd like to see how much you've improved after your trip to the continent of divine ruins. How dare you speak so arrogantly? Today, I'll teach you a good lesson on behalf of the demon ancestor. Chu Luo was furious. He stepped out of his seat and pressed towards Lu Ming. The aura on his body grew stronger and stronger. Some of the Supremes on the side had a drastic change in expression and felt that it was difficult to breathe. If you want to fight, then let's fight outside. Lu Ming stood up and took a step out. In a flash, he left the hall and arrived in the sky outside the hall. Many people were stunned. What did Lu Ming say? He wanted to fight Chu Luo. Did he really dare to fight Chu Luo? Many people thought that they had heard wrongly. Although Lu Ming had restrained his aura, they could still sense that Lu Ming was only at the spirit god realm. A young man at the spirit god realm actually wanted to fight an emperor? Lu Ming was either crazy or extremely arrogant. Ha ha ha, you've seen it too. This kid is arrogant and ignorant. I'll teach him a lesson. Chu Luo laughed angrily, his eyes filled with anger. Lu Ming actually dared to challenge him. A spiritual deity challenging an emperor was a great insult to him. He had to teach Lu Ming a lesson. He didn't even consider that all of this was the result of him constantly provoking Lu Ming. With a flicker, Chu Luo left the hall and arrived in the air. Let's go out and take a look. Whoosh! 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 The experts in the main hall rushed out of the main hall and stood in the void. Lu Ming, Yan Kuangtu revealed a worried look and also rushed out of the main hall. Lu Ming. A strange look flashed across Xiao Wan's eyes. Based on his understanding of Lu Ming was not an arrogant person. On the contrary, Lu Ming never fought someone he was not confident about. Could Lu Ming really create a miracle and contend against a ruler? Xiao Wan's eyes were filled with anticipation as he walked out of the hall. Look, who's that? That's the Chu Luo Demon Emperor, and the other person is Lu Ming, General Lu. What's going on? It looks like the Chu Luo Demon Emperor is going to fight with General Lu. No way, the Chu Luo Demon Emperor is a ruler. How could General Lu be a match for him? With so many experts gathered in the sky, their auras were mighty and the commotion was huge. Many people in the 100 Beast tribe sensed the commotion and looked over. Some of them were in disbelief. High up in the sky. Lu Ming, I admit that although you are talented, you are too arrogant and condescending. Today, I will teach you a lesson to wake you up and let you know who you are. Chu Luo's voice was heard as he took a step forward. With every step he took, heaven and earth seemed to resonate with him and trembled. The powerful aura of a martial emperor burst out and spread between heaven and earth, causing many people to tremble and break out in cold sweat. Some of the weaker cultivators knelt down as if they were facing the heavenly Tao and could not resist. However, Lu Ming stood quietly in the void. His body did not move and he did not even lift his eyelids. This world is much bigger than you think. The divine region is just a small part of it. In the entire Yuan realm, a rank 1 martial emperor is just a low-level existence. As a rank 1 martial emperor, you act high and mighty. Your achievements will stop here. A calm and indifferent voice came from Lu Ming's mouth. Shut up, my achievements will not be judged by you. Lu Ming's words infuriated Chu Luo. With a shout, Chu Luo was the first to move. He took a step forward and clenched his claws in the air. A pitch-black claw condensed from demonic aura grabbed at Lu Ming. Even a prime would be seriously injured by this claw. However, Lu Ming did not move in the face of this claw. It was as if he did not see it and allowed the giant claw to grab him. Why isn't Lu Ming fighting back? Could it be that he is frightened or imprisoned? The power of an emperor is too terrifying. It can imprison heaven and earth. Lu Ming probably wants to fight back, but he can't move his body. Seeing this scene, many people guessed. Lu Ming, dodge. Yan Kuangtu became anxious. However, Lu Ming still did not move. Humph, a mere spiritual god ant dares to preach to me. I will teach him a lesson. As long as I don't kill him and break a few of his bones, I think the demon ancestor will not blame me. Chu Luo sneered, and the demonic chi became stronger. In an instant, the giant claw was about to grab Lu Ming's head. At this moment, Lu Ming finally moved. Lu Ming's movement was very simple. He threw a simple punch. Boom! The space exploded like tofu. The claw that Chu Luo condensed also exploded under Lu Ming's punch, disappearing into nothingness. This, everyone's pupils suddenly widened in shock. Lu Ming's seemingly casual punch defeated the claw condensed from Chu Luo's demonic chi. Although Chu Luo didn't use his true ability at all, it could still injure a supreme being. However, it was defeated so easily by Lu Ming. How was this possible? Lu Ming's combat strength had already reached such a level. It was too shocking. What a powerful punch. Its power is boundless, especially the power of his physical body. It's extremely shocking. Why do I feel like it's a spiritual body erupting? The barbaric emperor spoke with deep surprise in his eyes. I have the same feeling too. The other emperors also spoke. Lu Ming. Xie Luan's eyes also lit up. Yan Kuangtu's eyes were even brighter. You have some ability. Take another move of mine. Chu Luo roared. He felt humiliated after being blocked by Lu Ming, and the anger in his heart burned even more. Buzz! The demonic domain spread out from his body and enveloped Lu Ming. At the same time, the muscles all over his body swelled, and he suddenly threw a punch. This punch contained the power of the domain and the power of his spiritual body. Its power was 10 times stronger than the previous move. Chu Luo had already used his true strength and displayed the power of an emperor. Roar! Roar! Chapter 13-16. Swoosh! Lu Ming performed the wind origin skill. With a tremble of his body, he rushed toward Chu Luo and threw out a punch. The two of them each threw out a punch, which collided in the air and bombarded each other. Boom! A deafening sound was heard. Then, under everyone's shocked and incredulous gazes, Chu Luo's domain was shattered by Lu Ming's punch. Crack! The sound of bones breaking resounded throughout the place. Chu Luo screamed. His entire arm was deformed. His body shook violently and was sent flying like a cannonball. Lu Ming, on the other hand, did not move at all. Oh my God, everyone looked at this scene with their mouths agape. They were completely stunned and tongue-tied. Their eyes were full of disbelief. Chu Luo, a demon emperor, was sent flying by Lu Ming's punch and his hand bones were broken. How was this possible? This was simply like a fantasy story, something that was simply impossible to happen. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would not have believed that such a thing had happened. In fact, even if they saw it with their own eyes, many people would not dare to believe it and thought that they were dreaming. Boom! Many powerhouses could not control the excitement in their hearts and their bodies erupted with strong auras. Even Xie Luan was the same. Monster, he's really a monster. It seems that the people of the Divine Gate are not telling the truth. They must be hiding something. Xie Luan muttered to himself, revealing an extremely excited expression. Lu Ming. Yan Kuangtu also muttered softly, trembling with excitement. One punch had injured an emperor. What did this mean? It meant that Lu Ming's combat strength had at least reached the level of an emperor. With such little combat strength, you still act high and mighty. Who gave you the confidence? Lu Ming stepped in the void and rushed toward Chu Luo at an extremely fast speed, throwing out another punch. This punch contained Lu Ming's true origin, the power of the 9 dragon forces, the power of the 3rd bloodline, and of course, the power of a pure spirit body that had reached 50%. The terrifying power, coupled with the hell-suppressing heaven skill, was extremely powerful. Chu Luo roared wildly. A battle saber appeared in his hand and he slashed out fiercely. This attack was the eruption of Chu Luo's strongest combat strength. Boom! The dazzling saber gleam collapsed under Lu Ming's iron fist. The terrifying fist force bombarded Chu Luo's combat saber, causing Chu Luo's body to tremble violently. He retreated violently and spurted blood from his mouth. 9 dragons stomping the heavens. Activating the wind origin art, Lu Ming appeared above Chu Luo's head. His hands rapidly formed hand seals, and 4 sealing gates appeared around Chu Luo. A powerful sealing force locked Chu Luo in the void. During this time, Lu Ming didn't give up on cultivating the 9 seals. Every day, he would take some time to comprehend it. After several months of bitter cultivation, the 9 seals of the Divine Gate had taken another step forward. He could condense 4 sealing doors at once, and their power was even stronger. Then, Lu Ming executed the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps, taking 8 consecutive steps. Boom! 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 Chu Luo's body shook violently. With every step he took, he spat out blood. In the end, he smashed into the ground like a meteor. Sizzle! Sizzle! Lu Ming waved his hand and activated the Thunder Origin Art. A lightning whip condensed from lightning flashed out and wrapped around Chu Luo's body, pulling him in front of Lu Ming. At this moment, Chu Luo's face was pale. Half of his body had exploded, and blood kept flowing out of his mouth. Chu Luo was an emperor. If he were an ordinary martial artist, he wouldn't have survived. An emperor had a spiritual body, so he could recover with some time. At this moment, Chu Luo looked at Lu Ming with eyes full of fear and disbelief. There was a deathly silence at the scene. Chu Luo had lost. Chu Luo had been thoroughly defeated. Facing Lu Ming, Chu Luo was like a baby who couldn't withstand a single blow. Chu Luo was an emperor, and his cultivation had reached the late first level of the martial emperor realm. He wasn't weak among martial emperors, but he couldn't fight back against Lu Ming. Was he still human? Was Lu Ming still human? The cultivation level that Lu Ming displayed was only at the primordial god realm. Since when did a spiritual god realm cultivator have such combat strength that he could easily crush an emperor? No one had heard of such a thing since ancient times. Everyone just widened their eyes and stared blankly at this scene. They were completely speechless. Are you very strong? Lu Ming stared at Chu Luo and said indifferently. Chu Luo's body trembled when he heard those words. These 3 short words made him feel so ashamed that he couldn't show his face. Just now, he thought that he was an emperor and looked down on Lu Ming. When Lu Ming said that he wanted to rescue the World Academy alone, he said that Lu Ming was arrogant and ignorant. But now it was proven that he was both arrogant and ignorant. Chu Luo's body trembled slightly. After a short while, Chu Luo took a deep breath, lowered his head, and bowed deeply to Lu Ming. He said, "Commander Lu's talent is unprecedented and has surpassed the great figures of ancient times. I was ignorant and had eyes but failed to see. Please forgive me, Commander Lu." Chu Luo's voice was sincere and came from the bottom of his heart. He was finally convinced, completely convinced. Such a genius had never been heard of since ancient times, at least not in the divine wilderness continent. It had exceeded his imagination, and he was finally convinced. Commander Lu's talent is unprecedented and dazzling. The other experts in the surroundings were deeply moved, and they bowed to Lu Ming as well. Commander Lu's talent is unprecedented and dazzling. Commander Lu's talent is unprecedented and dazzling. After that, even more people bowed to Lu Ming, and their voices grew louder and louder. In the end, it resounded throughout the entire 100 Beast tribe. Through this battle, many people were truly convinced by Lu Ming and recognized that Lu Ming had formed an alliance with Xiao Wan and was the supreme commander. Previously, many people had called Lu Ming Commander Lu because of Xiao Wan. In fact, they looked down on Lu Ming in their hearts. However, after this battle, everyone truly placed Lu Ming in the same position as Xiao Wan, or even higher. He had such combat strength before breaking through to the martial emperor realm. If Lu Ming broke through to the martial emperor realm, how strong would his combat strength be? It was unimaginable. Lu Ming stood in the void, accepting the worship of the experts. His face was calm, like an invincible god of war. Go back and heal your injuries." Lu Ming waved his hand and put away the lightning whip. Chu Luo flew far away. "Thank you for showing mercy, Commander Lu." Chu Luo bowed. "Haha, Lu Ming, I haven't seen you in a while, and I have a whole new level of respect for you." Xiao Wan stepped forward and laughed. He then asked, "Lu Ming, did the experts from the divine sect hide anything when they came to the divine wilderness continent?" "That's right." Lu Ming nodded. Now that he had established his prestige, there was no need for him to hide anything. This time, the divine sect is not the only sect that came to the divine ruins continent to recruit disciples. There are 3 other sects. Lu Ming said. There are 3 other sects from Yuanlu. Many people's hearts trembled. In their hearts, the Yuanlu sects were lofty and unreachable existences. This time, there were a total of 4 sections. Xiaoluan seemed to have thought of something, and his eyes lit up. Chapter 1317. It's true that I have offended the sky pride of the celestial divine sect, but that sky pride has been defeated by me. I have also joined another major sect in Yuanlu, the Divine Dragon Valley. Lu Ming said. Indeed. Xiaoluan's eyes shone brightly. General Lu has joined a major sect in Yuanlu. The hearts of many other experts trembled as their eyes shone brightly. General Lu's talent is unparalleled. Someone roared again, extremely agitated. This time, they were more sincere and respectful than before. Previously, it was because of Lu Ming's strength. This time, it was because of Lu Ming's identity. Lu Ming had joined a major sect in Yuanlu and was now a disciple of the sect. His identity had become superior in the eyes of the crowd, even surpassing Xiaoluan. All right. Lu Ming gestured with one hand and the crowd quieted down. We'll talk about the details later. Now, we'll follow the original plan and head to the World Academy to rescue the World Academy. Lu Ming said. No, General Lu. If you want to go, we'll go with you. It's too dangerous for you to go alone. The barbaric emperor said. Yeah, we'll go with you. Yan Kuangtu said. No need. You guys stay here. I know what I'm doing. I won't put myself in danger. After Lu Ming finished speaking, he did not say anything else. He drew a line in the air with both hands and the air cracked open. Lu Ming stepped into the crack and disappeared. Even after Lu Ming disappeared, everyone's agitated emotions had not calmed down. It was mainly because of the shock caused by Lu Ming. It was too shocking. When Lu Ming went to the world of divine ruins, Lu Ming's cultivation base was only at a very low level. Now, he was able to suppress an emperor. His improvement was too shocking. No, we can't let Lu Ming take the risk alone. Emperor Yuexin, Emperor Tianfeng, you guys guard this place. Mo Yi, barbaric emperor, follow me and head to the World Academy secretly. If Lu Ming is in danger, we'll help him. Xiaoluan ordered. I'll go too. Demon Ancestor, I'll go too. Yan Kuangtu and Chu Luo stepped out. Although Chu Luo was injured by Lu Ming, his origin was not damaged. At this moment, his spirit body was recovering quickly. Half of Chu Luo's body that was damaged. Of course, this was because Lu Ming was being merciful. If his origin was injured, it would be impossible for him to recover so quickly. Alright, let's go together. After saying that, Xiaoluan tore open space and brought a group of experts to head towards World Academy. The World Academy. The Academy was a place. The White Emperor's white Jade Palace. Only white palace. Was palace. Was white. The white Jade Palace floated high up in the sky, emitting a blinding light. The white palace was White Emperor in the army. There were people from the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace, the Heavenly Corpse sect, and the Southern Ming Kingdom. There were also people from the other overlords of the Central Continent. Because they had pledged their allegiance to DE, they were also fighting for hegemony with him. Boom! At the top of the White Jade Palace, there were 2 stalwart figures. They were enveloped by endless divine light and emitted a terrifying aura. It was the might of a sovereign. The 2 figures were emperors, and they were currently attacking the White Jade Palace. Inside the White Jade Palace, there were 2 white-haired old men who also emitted the auras of rulers. They were working together to resist the attacks of the rulers outside. Attack together. This White Jade Palace won't last for long. In the crowd, there was a middle-aged man in a purple robe giving orders. If Lu Ming was here, he would definitely recognize that this person was Wang Xingtian, the head of the Wang clan, one of the 6 great ancient clans of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace. Now, He was in high spirits. He was one of the first people to follow Martial Emperor De. He was De's trusted aide. Ever since Martial Emperor De revealed his true strength, he had been invincible. The older De Tian Divine Palace got, the stronger he became. However, the powerhouses who joined later on naturally did not have a higher status than him. Only the rulers had a higher status than him. Those supremes were lower than him. They had to curry favor with him and listen to his orders. Whoosh! 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 Countless attacks and beams of light shot towards the White Jade Palace from all directions. The White Jade Palace was completely submerged in the beams of light. Block! In the White Jade Palace, the disciples and elders of the World Academy roared. They cooperated with the White Jade Palace's array and attacked, doing their best to block. Rumble. However, there were too many attacks coming from the outside. The White Jade Palace rumbled and shook. If this continued, they would not be able to hold on for long. World Academy, I advise you to quickly surrender. Right now, His Majesty Martial Emperor De is the hero of 10,000 people. By the order of the heavens, he will unify the divine wilderness continent. If you stubbornly resist, you will be courting death. The Wong clan head's voice spread far and wide. Humph. De is ambitious. He wants to rule the divine desolate continent. Dream on. Our World Academy would rather die than surrender. Voices could be heard coming from the White Jade Palace. The Wong clan head's face sank. He snorted coldly and said, "You really don't know your limits. I already gave you a chance, but you don't know how to cherish it. In that case, die. Continue attacking." Whoosh! 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 Thousands of attacks and beams of light flew towards the White Jade Palace. The intense battle continued. At this moment, 1,000 miles north of the World Academy, the space cracked and Lu Ming's figure stepped out. "Looks like I'm not too late." Lu Ming looked into the distance and muttered. He then took a step forward and headed towards the battlefield. 1,000 miles was crossed by Lu Ming in the blink of an eye. "Who is it? Stop right there." As soon as Lu Ming approached, he was discovered. A group of black-robed martial artists with sinister aura stared at Lu Ming. Nanming's men. A cold light flashed in Lu Ming's eyes as he continued to move forward. Nanming's men were easy to recognize. "Brat, stop. You're courting death." A third-level spirit god expert slashed at Lu Ming with his blade. Lu Ming stretched out a palm and clenched it in the air. A devouring force erupted from his palm. The third-level spirit god expert was enveloped by the devouring force. His body was fixed in the air and couldn't move at all. Then, he was horrified to find that his essence blood, true yuan, and intent runes all flew out of his body and into Lu Ming's palm. Such a strange scene frightened him so much that he screamed. But every few breaths, his body shriveled up and lost all signs of life. What kind of evil technique is this? Let's attack together and kill this person. At the side, the others widened their eyes when they saw this scene. They then roared and charged at Lu Ming. "Devour!" Lu Ming muttered. An even stronger devouring force erupted and enveloped this group of people. This group of people turned into dried corpses and fell to the ground like raindrops. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Horrified screams resounded. More people discovered Lu Ming and attacked Lu Ming. Chapter 13:18. Regardless of whether they were below the spiritual god realm or above, the outcome was the same. They were devoured and turned into dried corpses. Retreat, retreat! Call the experts over. The army was in chaos, and many people retreated in horror. The army was in chaos because of Lu Ming, and a gap appeared. Who is so bold to attack my Emperor Heaven Divine Palace? There was a loud shout. Following which, figures flashed and more than 10 figures appeared in front of Lu Ming. What a coincidence! Lu Ming's lips curled up slightly. A few of them were Lu Ming's old acquaintances. The Wang family's patriarch, Wang Xingtian, the Jiang family's patriarch, and the Luan family's patriarch. 3 of the 6 ancient families' patriarchs of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace had come. Behind the 3 patriarchs were a dozen people. 3 of them were Supreme Being experts, while the others were at the great circle of the Spirit God realm. It's you, the patriarch of the Wang family, Jiang family, and the others were stunned when they saw Lu Ming. They stared at Lu Ming in disbelief. Lu Ming, it's you. Didn't you die? You died in the hands of the celestial god sect's genius in the continent of God? After a long while, everyone recovered. The patriarch of the Wang family pointed at Lu Ming and shouted in disbelief. The news that the experts of the Southern God Palace had come to the Divine Wilderness continent and announced Lu Ming's death had spread throughout the Divine Wilderness continent. Almost all the powerful forces knew about it. Wang Xingtian and the others had thought that Lu Ming had died in the continent of God. Now that they saw him, they were naturally shocked. How could I die when you're not dead? Lu Ming smiled faintly. So you're not dead. You're really lucky. However, you're really stupid. Since you're not dead, you should have hidden. Now that you've come here, you're really courting death. I'll fulfill your wish. The patriarch of the Wang family laughed loudly and revealed a ferocious killing intent. He released his aura and locked onto Lu Ming. He was afraid that Lu Ming would escape. With just you. Last time in 9 Dragon City, you managed to escape with your life. This time, I won't fail. Lu Ming smiled coldly. You're courting death. The head of the Wang family roared furiously. Last time in 9 Dragon City, Lu Ming had almost killed the Wang family's patriarch with the divine 9-dragon cauldron. This matter was considered taboo by the Wang family's patriarch. Now that Lu Ming had brought it up again in front of everyone, it was a stab to the Wang family's patriarch's heart. Boom! The head of the Wang clan radiated a cold killing intent as he stepped forward. His entire body was covered in purple flames that completely annihilated the void. The temperature of the area rose rapidly. Some of the weaker cultivators were shocked and quickly retreated. I will burn you to ashes. A cold voice came from the Wang clan head's mouth. The Wang clan head pushed his hands forward, and a large purple fireball flew towards Lu Ming. The temperature of the purple fireball was terrifyingly high. Wherever it passed, space was annihilated, revealing black spatial passageways. In an instant, it flew in front of Lu Ming. Die! The Wang clan head laughed sinisterly. But in the next moment, his smile stiffened. Lu Ming reached out a hand and grabbed the purple fireball. The purple fireball shrank rapidly and finally turned into a wisp of flame, burning and jumping in Lu Ming's palm. This is your flame. You want to burn me to ashes? In my opinion, it's not even enough to cook a meal. Lu Ming sneered. He then blew a puff of air and the flame in his palm was extinguished. A slap in the face, a slap in the face. The Wang clan head's face was flushed red. He stared at Lu Ming and wanted to bite Lu Ming to death. Die! The head of the Wang family roared and the flames on his body became more vigorous. A ball of purple flames appeared on top of his head. Moving his body, he performed bloodline integration and turned into flames. The flames twisted and eventually turned into a purple flaming combat sword that slashed toward Lu Ming. Boom! Lu Ming didn't even look at it and punched the purple sword. A scream was heard as the purple sword shattered. The Wang clan head's figure appeared with blood spurting out of his mouth. His face was filled with fear as he frantically retreated. As soon as the Wang clan head retreated, a series of screams were heard. The path that the Wang clan head took was the army. At least 1,000 people were killed by the Wang clan head. Run! The others screamed and ran as far as they could. A battle between supremes was too dangerous. If they were too close, they wouldn't even know how they died. Today, the one who will die is you. Lu Ming stared at the Wang clan head and stepped forward. Save me, save me. The Wang clan head screamed in fear. By the side, the head of the Jiang family, the head of the Luan family, and the rest were initially stunned. Lu Ming had injured the head of the Wang family with one punch. They were really stunned and somewhat in disbelief. Now that the head of the Wang family shouted, they finally regained their senses. Attack! Kill him! Kill! The Jiang clan head, Luan clan head, and the others roared and attacked together. 5 Supremes attacked at the same time. 5 different rays of light tore through the sky and blasted toward Lu Ming. Get lost! Lu Ming spat out coldly and threw out 5 punches in a row. 5 rays of fist intent tore through the sky. Boom! 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 The fist intent easily shattered the attacks of the 5 Supremes. The Jiang clan head, Luan clan head, and the others groaned as they were knocked back while vomiting blood. With just 5 casual punches, 5 supreme beings were heavily injured. Countless people who had retreated far away sucked in a breath of cold air. As for the Wang family head, he was scared half to death. He was dumbfounded. He thought that he was dreaming. How long had it been? Lu Ming had only taken a trip to the godly ruins continent. How did he become so strong after returning? Was he still a member of the younger generation? Lu Ming continued to attack the Wang clan head. The Wang clan head roared in fear and desperately retreated into the crowd. He wanted others to block Lu Ming for him. You guys, block him. Damn it, how dare you run? I'm the trusted aide of Martial Emperor De. You guys are courting death. I'll kill all of you in the future. The Wang clan head roared. However, the others were not idiots. They all ran away when they saw the Wang clan head coming over. No one blocked Lu Ming for him. Are you kidding? Injuring 5 Supremes with a single punch? Aren't they just courting death? The Wang clan head almost lost all hope. Clang! At this moment, the saber gleam exploded in the sky. A black saber gleam cut through the void and slashed toward Lu Ming. Its power was terrifying. The martial emperor had attacked. Boom! A dragon roar came from Lu Ming's body. He then threw out a punch and clashed with the saber light. The saber light was successfully blocked by Lu Ming. Whoosh! A figure appeared in front of Lu Ming. It was an old man in a black robe. He was skinny and his eye sockets were sunken. He looked like a skeleton. However, the aura emanating from his body was extremely frightening, causing one's heart to tremble. He was an emperor. The 3rd Emperor of the Underworld. Chapter 13-19. There were only 5 or 6 sovereigns in Nanming Kingdom and they were all ranked. The 1st Emperor of the Underworld was the most powerful, followed by the 2nd Emperor of the Underworld. The 3rd Emperor of the Underworld was the most powerful. When the 3rd Emperor of the Underworld attacked, the family head of the Wang family was overjoyed. He thought that he was saved. 3rd Emperor of the Underworld, His Majesty De wants to capture this man. Quick, kill him and His Majesty will reward you handsomely. The family head of the Wang family shouted. Such combat strength at such a young age is rare. It's a pity that you don't know how to keep a low profile and come here. I'll send you on your way, hee hee. The 3rd Emperor of the Underworld laughed. His voice was dry and unpleasant, like that of a skeleton. His body was covered in a large black robe, which covered his entire body. It looked like a piece of black cloth floating in the air. Netherworld realm, turn into my netherworld chi. The 3rd Emperor of the Underworld smiled hideously. A black realm spread out and shrouded Lu Ming. The speed of the realm was extremely fast. As soon as it appeared, it covered an area with a radius of 100 miles. Lu Ming was also shrouded in it. Suddenly, he felt countless black shadows pouncing on Lu Ming. Endless netherworld chi penetrated Lu Ming's skin and tried to corrode Lu Ming and turn him into netherworld chi. Clang! At the same time, a black saber appeared in the third emperor of the underworld's hand and he slashed at Lu Ming. In his own realm, the third emperor of the underworld's speed was extremely fast. As soon as the saber slashed out, it was in front of Lu Ming. Wind origin skill. Lu Ming's heart stirred. He used the wind origin skill and his body moved without wind. He swayed slightly and dodged the third emperor of the underworld's attack. At the same time, he threw out a punch. Clang! The fist force hit the side of the saber and there was a loud bang. The third emperor of the underworld's body trembled and he could not help but take 2 steps back. As for Lu Ming, he also took a few steps back with a bang. Such powerful strength. The third emperor of the underworld was shocked. Netherworld body. The third emperor of the underworld's body trembled, and his entire body collapsed, transforming into a mass of underworld chi. Combined with his underworld domain, it enveloped heaven and earth. Everything within 100 miles of the nether domain was filled with nether chi. Spirit bodies were formed from the condensation of blood vessels, and they possessed some of the characteristics of blood vessels. Different spirit bodies had different mysteries and effects. Some spirit bodies were more attack-oriented, some were more defensive-oriented, and some were more speed-oriented. For example, the spiritual body of the third emperor of the underworld could transform into underworld chi and launch attacks. Whoosh! 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 Lu Ming was shrouded in the aura of the netherworld. There were bursts of air-piercing sounds all around him. Countless saber gleams slashed toward Lu Ming from an unknown direction. Fire element technique, lightning element technique. With a thought, Lu Ming converted the chaos concept into the fire concept and thunder concept. A long spear condensed from flames appeared in Lu Ming's right hand, and a long spear condensed from lightning appeared in his left hand. Whoosh! The long spear of flames swept out in all directions with a force that could wipe out an army. Fire and lightning were the natural enemies of underworld chi. Moreover, the fire concept and thunder concept were condensed from the fire concept and thunder concept. The power of the two concepts was even more shocking. As the long spear of flames swept out, the dark underworld chi exploded. The saber lights that were slashing at Lu Ming collapsed one by one. Even the nether domain shook violently, as if it would explode at any time. Over there, Lu Ming's eyes were fixed in front of him. The long spear of lightning in his left hand shot out. Ah! A scream came from that place. Then, the third emperor of the underworld appeared and retreated. There was a hole in his shoulder, and there were flashes of lightning flashing. How could this be? The Wang family head, the Jiang family head, and the others opened their eyes wide and looked at the scene in disbelief. The third emperor of the underworld was injured. An emperor was injured by Lu Ming. How could this be? Lu Ming could even injure an emperor. Whoosh! Lu Ming used the wind concept and his body flashed. He quickly approached the third emperor of the underworld and threw out a punch. This punch was a combination of the earth element technique, fire element technique, and thunder element technique. The third emperor of the underworld's territory shook violently. It only lasted for a breath before it exploded. The terrifying power of the three martial skills of wills landed on the third emperor of the underworld's body. The third emperor of the underworld screamed in agony as his body flew far away. Half of his body exploded and his aura weakened. Run, run. There was only one thought in the Wang family head's mind, and that was to run. Lu Ming was too monstrous. How old was he? His combat strength was unimaginably strong. Even the third emperor of the underworld was not a match for him. After exchanging a few blows, he was almost dead. If he did not run, he would die. Wang Xingtian, I said, you will die today. Lu Ming's cold voice sounded. He used the wind concept and caught up with the Wang family head in a few flashes. No, please spare my life, death was imminent. The Wang family head broke down and begged bitterly. He did not care about being a sovereign or his reputation. Compared to his life, these were nothing. Lu Ming looked at the Wang family head coldly. There was no pity in his eyes. Once upon a time, the Wang family head was a supreme existence in Lu Ming's eyes. He was a sovereign who could kill him with a single finger. But things had changed. Now, the Wang family head was nothing in front of Lin Fan. He could easily kill him. The world was unpredictable. Who could predict it? Lu Ming was growing rapidly. Unknowingly, Lu Ming had become a top figure in the divine wilderness continent. Those who once needed to look up to him had to look up to him now. Go to hell. An indifferent voice came from Lu Ming's mouth. His palm was like a knife as it struck out. No, if I die, you will die too. The Wang family head roared. Knowing that he was going to die, a ruthless look flashed in his eyes. The aura on his body became violent. He was going to self-destruct. Humph. Lu Ming snorted coldly. His palms suddenly exerted force. A phantom of the prison-suppressing monument flashed and suppressed the Wang family head. The Wang family head did not even have the chance to scream before he was crushed into pieces and died on the spot. In front of Lu Ming, he could not even self-destruct. It's your turn. Lu Ming looked at the head of the Jiang family and the head of the Luan family. Back then, in the Battle of Nine Dragon City, the family heads of the 6 ancient families had all attacked Lu Ming. Among them, the Jiang family head, the Luan family head, and the Wang family head all wanted to kill Lu Ming. Lu Ming had always kept this grudge in his heart. Today, he would kill them all. Run, run. The Jiang family head and the Luan family head desperately rushed into the sky because there were sovereigns there. But how fast was Lu Ming? He took a step and appeared behind them. He activated the prison-suppressing heaven skill and struck out twice. The 2 family heads were dead. Third Underworld Emperor. Chapter 1320. The third emperor of the Netherworld's expression changed and he quickly retreated. Broken Mountain Martial Emperor, let's attack together. The third emperor of the Netherworld shouted. There was another martial emperor in the sky. He was the martial emperor of an overlord force in the central continent. Previously, he had sided with DE and attacked the World Academy together with the third emperor of the Netherworld. This time, only the 2 martial emperors from D Tian Divine Palace had come. Kill! The Broken Mountain Martial Emperor was burly and he was more than 3 meters tall. He held a large saber in his hand and slashed toward Lu Ming. At the same time, while the third emperor of the Netherworld was healing his injuries, he also attacked Lu Ming. The 2 martial emperors joined forces to attack Lu Ming. Boom! Boom! Lu Ming threw out 2 consecutive punches. His fists were filled with chaos. This was not the chaotic will. Lu Ming had combined the 5 martial techniques of the 5 wills. The first to bear the brunt were the 2 martial emperors' realms. The 2 realms covered Lu Ming's body and continuously consumed Lu Ming's attacks. Invisible attacks continued to attack Lu Ming. Lu Ming's punches caused the realms to vibrate. Lu Ming charged into the realms and fought with the 2 martial emperors. The Broken Mountain Martial Emperor was burly and he was known for his attacks and strength. However, after exchanging 1 blow with Lu Ming, he was still forced to retreat. If not for the third emperor of the Netherworld's help, Lu Ming could have defeated the Broken Mountain Martial Emperor. Even so, Lu Ming still had the upper hand at the start of the battle. Lu Ming, that is Lu Ming. A group of people stood in the White Jade Palace of the World Academy. Among them, there were familiar figures that Lu Ming was familiar with, such as Kong Xian and Sandalwood Fairy. The Medicine King Valley did not have any martial emperors. In this chaotic world, it was difficult for them to protect themselves. However, the Medicine King Valley and the World Academy were on good terms. Hence, the Medicine King Valley had joined the World Academy and moved to the World Academy. The person who had spoken earlier was Kong Xian. His voice was filled with disbelief as he stared into the distance. It's Lu Ming. He didn't die. This is too shocking. Lu Ming can actually suppress emperors, and there are 2 emperors. Sandalwood Fairy's beautiful eyes were also wide open. Her voice was full of shock. Originally, when the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace launched an attack on the World Academy, they had already defended it for a few days. If this continued, it would only be a matter of time before they were breached. However, when they discovered that the army of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace was in chaos, they thought that it was the Heaven Suppression Army or Ciel Wan from the northern plains that had sent reinforcements. In the end, they discovered that there was only one person who had sent reinforcements, a young man. To their disbelief, they discovered that this youth was actually Lu Ming. It was rumored that Lu Ming had died in the Godly Ruins continent. And the battle prowess that Lu Ming displayed shocked them even more. What a rare talent! Beside Kong Xian, a white-haired elder sighed. This white-haired elder was one of the two great emperors of the World Academy. Dean, this is a rare opportunity. I feel that we should rush out and cooperate with Lu Ming to defeat the army of the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace. Sandalwood Fairy suggested. Wait a minute. The Emperor of the World Academy said, the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace has come to attack our World Academy. They won't only send 2 emperors. Perhaps there are still emperors hiding in the dark. Now that Lu Ming has the upper hand, we shouldn't be in a hurry to take action. It won't be too late to take action after we see the situation of the enemy. Kong Xian, Sandalwood Fairy, and the rest nodded. Indeed, now that Lu Ming had the upper hand, the one who should be anxious should be the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace, not them. If the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace still had emperors hiding in the dark, they wouldn't be able to hold back for long and would take action. In the void tens of thousands of miles away in the north, Ciel Wan and the rest were hiding and looking into the distance. Even though Lu Ming had already defeated Chu Luo, they still couldn't hide their astonishment when they saw Lu Ming's combat prowess. Mo Ancestor, should we take action now and wipe out this group of people from the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace? Mo Yi asked. Wait a minute. The Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace might have experts hiding in the dark. We should act according to the situation. Ciel Wan said. Boom! 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 High in the sky, 3 figures crisscrossed and engaged in an intense battle. Every time they clashed, there would be a muffled explosion. It was like the beginning of the universe and the beginning of the universe. The terrifying shockwaves caused some people's eardrums to ring loudly. Their bodies trembled, and they vomited blood. The army of the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace retreated again and again, distancing themselves from the battlefield. Dang! Lu Ming executed the martial techniques of 5 different states. Its might was shocking. He punched out and struck the Broken Mountain Martial Monarch's battle saber. The Broken Mountain Martial Monarch's body shook violently and was sent flying. Following this, Lu Ming flipped his left hand and chopped down with his palm. The underworld chi churned, and the 3rd underworld monarch was also sent flying. Kill! Lu Ming's body was as fast as lightning. In a flash, he dashed towards the 3rd underworld monarch. Terrifying attacks continuously rained down on the 3rd underworld monarch. The 3rd underworld monarch tried his best, but he could not block them. Wherever Lu Ming's fist passed, the underworld chi was destroyed. The 3rd underworld monarch cried out in pain, and his body almost exploded. On the other side, the Broken Mountain Martial Monarch rushed over to help. Buzz! The lightning cauldron appeared above Lu Ming's head and smashed towards the Broken Mountain Martial Monarch. As Lu Ming's cultivation increased, the power of the lightning cauldron increased when he controlled it. The lightning cauldron and the Broken Mountain Martial Monarch's battle saber collided. Although the lightning cauldron was sent flying, it had blocked the Broken Mountain Martial Monarch's attack. That was enough. Kill! Lu Ming charged towards the 3rd underworld monarch and punched out. The underworld chi exploded, and the 3rd underworld monarch cried out in pain. Half of his body had exploded, and his aura was weak. His injuries had worsened. The 3rd underworld monarch's underworld body was mysterious and unpredictable. If it had been any other martial monarch, they would have been severely injured by Lu Ming's attack. Even so, the 3rd underworld monarch was terrified. He turned around and ran. He was afraid. If this continued, he would be killed by Lu Ming. You can't escape. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with killing intent. He walked towards the third underworld monarch step by step. At the same time, Lu Ming's mind was highly focused, and his spiritual senses spread out in all directions. He seemed to be waiting for something. After a few steps, Lu Ming closed in on the third underworld monarch. His terrifying attack was about to land on the third underworld monarch. Bastard, how dare you! At that moment, a cold shout came from the sky. As soon as the voice was heard, a golden sword light descended from the sky and slashed towards Lu Ming's head. Danger! Facing the golden sword light, Lu Ming's hair stood on end. His heart trembled as he sensed that he was in mortal danger. Roar! Without hesitation, the 9 dragons' bloodline appeared. Lu Ming performed the bloodline fusion and turned into 9 dragons. Boom! Boom! The 9 dragons stepped on each of their claws. Each of their claws was a fusion of 5 different wills, and they attacked the golden sword light. An ear-piercing sound came from the sky. The golden sword light was extremely sharp, and it could cut through everything. The attacks formed by the 5 different wills were broken by the golden sword light. The 9 dragons were shocked and they could not help but retreat. They retreated for 1,000 miles before they could stabilize themselves. In the end, 3 of the 9 dragon claws were cut off. Chapter 13:21. What a powerful force! What a terrifying sword chi! Lu Ming was shocked. He had transformed into 9 dragons and performed a martial skill that combined 5 wills. Apart from the chaotic will, this was Lu Ming's strongest combat strength. However, he still could not resist the sword chi. He was pushed back 1,000 miles and 3 of his dragon claws were cut off. The power of the golden sword chi was extremely terrifying. Whoosh! High up in the sky, a golden light flashed and a figure appeared. It was an old man with thick bones and a burly figure. He wore a golden robe that fluttered in the wind and he exuded a majestic aura. A terrifying aura radiated from the old man in the golden robe, causing the sky to tremble. Peak LV2 Martial Royal Realm. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat and he looked extremely serious. The old man in the golden robe was at the same level as Xiao Wan and De. He was extremely powerful. The difference between each level of the Martial Royal Realm was huge. The difference between LV2 Martial Royal Realm and LV1 Martial Royal Realm was obvious. It was not difficult for a LV2 Martial Royal Realm to kill a LV1 Martial Royal Realm cultivator. Not to mention a peak LV2 Martial Royal Realm cultivator. Elder Di Hongqing. The third emperor of the underworld and Martial Emperor Pashan were overjoyed when they saw the old man. His surname is Di. Lu Ming frowned. Xiao Wan had said that there were 2 peak LV2 Martial Royal Realm cultivators beside De and they both had royal spiritual weapons. Lu Ming had a lot of questions in his heart. A peak second layer Martial Dominator Realm cultivator was not as common as cabbages, one could easily find one. In the Divine Wilderness continent, there were only Xiao Wan and De. Where did the 2 peak LV2 Martial Royal Realm cultivators beside De come from? Moreover, they both had royal spiritual weapons. Now he knew that one of them had the same surname as De. What was going on? Rumor had it that De Tian Divine Palace was built by Martial Emperor De. At that time, there was only Martial Emperor De and no one had heard that he had a family with the same surname. Later on, Martial Emperor De had a descendant and the De clan was born. Could this old man be De's descendant? Impossible. Lu Ming felt that this old man was even older than De. Lu Ming had more questions in his heart. He felt that De was more mysterious than he had imagined. Di Hongqing stood high up in the sky and looked down at Lu Ming. However, it was not difficult to see the astonishment and disbelief in his eyes. He seemed to be amazed by Lu Ming's age and combat strength. So you're Lu Ming. Lu Ming, It's not bad for you to have such cultivation and battle strength at your age. I think you're a talent. Why don't you join our D family? As long as you perform well, the D family won't mistreat you. Di Hongqing asked. His tone revealed a sense of superiority, as if he was looking down on others. This wasn't Di Hongqing's intention. It was as if he was born to be high and mighty, looking down on others. Hee hee. Lu Ming let out a faint laugh and stared at Di Hongqing instead of answering. After a while, Lu Ming said, You're not from the Godly Desolation continent, right? Or are you not from the Godly Desolation continent? Lu Ming had met all the geniuses of the Godly Desolation continent, and none of them had the surname Di. Di Hongqing was slightly startled, as if he had not expected Lu Ming to ask such a question all of a sudden. He then let out a hollow laugh and said, That's none of your business. Now, are you going to surrender or not? Surrender? Sure, but I have a condition. Give me Di Yi's head, and I'll surrender. Lu Ming said with a calm smile. Impudent. Di Hongqing's expression turned dark as a murderous intent burst out from his body. He said in a cold voice, Lu Ming, I was planning to give you a chance since you're quite talented, but you didn't take it. I guess I'll have to send you on your way. Di Hongqing clenched his fist in the air and a golden battle sword was formed. Sword chi shot up into the sky. Slash! Di Hongqing shouted softly and slashed with his golden combat sword. A terrifying sword aura that was thousands of miles long split the sky and slashed toward Lu Ming. It was even more powerful than the previous attack. Primal Chaos. 9 dragons stepped into the air as primal chaos chi surrounded Di Hongqing's body. Facing an expert like Di Hongqing, Lu Ming no longer hid his strength and unleashed it with all his might. Suppressing Hell Art. Lu Ming executed the Suppressing Hell Art as a dragon claw clawed at the golden sword light. The dragon claw was covered with the primal chaos intent. The primal chaos intent combined with the Suppressing Hell Art could unleash its full power. Boom! The dragon claw clashed with the golden sword light. It was as if the entire world was shaking, as if it was the end of the world. Half of the sky was filled with golden sword light, while the other half was filled with primal chaos. Di Hongqing and Lu Ming's figures were pushed back by an invisible force. They could not help but retreat simultaneously. How is this possible? The Broken Mountain Martial Dominator and the Third Underworld Emperor stared with their eyes wide open. They could not believe their eyes. Lu Ming had managed to block Di Hongqing's attack. Not only that, it seemed like they were on par with each other, as they were both pushed back. This meant that Lu Ming was able to stand his ground against Di Hongqing. Lu Ming had not used his full strength when he was fighting against them. Upon having this thought, they could feel a chill down their spines. If Lu Ming had used his full strength, wouldn't they be dead meat? Gulp. Gulp. Inside the White Jade Palace of the World Academy, Kong Xian, Sandalwood Fairy, the 2 martial dominators of the World Academy, and the rest of the experts swallowed their saliva with great difficulty. Their eyes were wide open as they stared into the distance. Sigh. The gap between us and Lu Ming is getting bigger. After a while, Kong Xian let out a sigh. His voice was filled with helplessness. Lu Ming is not on the same level as us to begin with. He is destined to be more brilliant and go further in the future. Sandalwood Fairy's eyes flickered with excitement. Indeed, he's already standing at the peak of the Divine Desolation continent at such a young age. I wonder how great his future will be. One of the martial dominators of the World Academy let out a sigh. In the northern sky, Xiao Wan and the others stared with their eyes open wide. Chu Luo's figure trembled violently. He could not find any words after a long time. They had initially thought it was shocking enough that Lu Ming was able to defeat Chu Luo and defeat an ordinary martial dominator. However, they now realized that they had underestimated Lu Ming. Lu Ming was able to fight against a peak second-layer martial dominator realm cultivator. In other words, Lu Ming's strength was on par with Xiao Wan's. Lu Ming, among the crowd, Yan Kuangtu was the most excited. He clenched his fists in excitement. I was right about him. Xie Luan's eyes flickered. He knew that he had made the right bet. Emperor's sword, shattering the heavens. Di Hongqing's furious voice could be heard. He had been knocked back by Lu Ming. While he was astonished, it also triggered his murderous intent. Chapter 1322. The attack of a Peak LV2 Martial Royal Realm Cultivator was earth-shattering and powerful. The third Emperor of the Underworld and Martial Emperor Pashan were terrified by the attack. They felt that they had no hope of being killed by the attack. Lu Ming, Kong Xian and the others in the White Jade Palace, as well as Xie Luan and the others in the north, became nervous. Xie Luan, in particular, was ready to help. The combat strength of a Peak LV2 Martial Royal Realm Cultivator is indeed terrifying. Lu Ming narrowed his eyes and the 9 dragons twisted their bodies. They opened their mouths and a devouring force burst out. At the same time, the illusory figure of the suppressing prison monument appeared in front of them. Boom! Once again, it clashed with the golden sword radiance and a terrifying explosion occurred. The illusory figure of the suppressing prison monument was destroyed by the golden sword radiance, but the golden sword radiance also collapsed. Swoosh! Swoosh! The 9 dragons and Di Hongqing retreated at the same time. This time, Di Hongqing retreated a shorter distance while Lu Ming retreated a longer distance. The 9 dragons' bodies were trembling slightly and there were sword marks all over them. Light was shining on the 9 dragons' bodies. The bodies of the 9 dragons seemed to have become less solid and more illusory. Without becoming a martial emperor and a spiritual body, the power of your bloodline is limited. Let's see how you are going to fight me. Di Hongqing sneered and his eyes were cold. The power of the bloodline was limited after all. The more intense the fight, the more bloodline power would be consumed. Once the power of the bloodline was used up, the bloodline fusion could not be maintained. Only when the power of the bloodline was recovered could the bloodline fusion be used again. It was obvious that Lu Ming's 9 dragons' bloodline was about to be used up. Therefore, the 9 dragons were becoming illusory. I will kill you with this attack. Di Hongqing stepped forward and the golden sword radiance became even more dazzling. Emperor's sword, break the world. Swoosh! The golden sword radiance slashed toward Lu Ming again and it was filled with murderous intent. Di Hongqing wanted to kill Lu Ming with this attack. Puff! The 9 dragons' bloodline burst like a bubble. However, Lu Ming's real body did not appear. Instead, a stone tablet appeared. The suppressing prison monument. The prison suppressing steel expanded to the size of a mountain, emitting a blinding light. Below him, the word steel shone brightly. Wang! The prison suppressing steel was covered with a layer of chaotic intent, which made it feel even heavier, as if it could suppress everything. The prison suppressing steel suppressed the golden sword light. The second 9th grade divine bloodline. Di Hongqing narrowed his eyes. The prison suppressing steel's bloodline collided with the golden sword light. The lower part of the prison suppressing steel's bloodline was solid, indestructible and indestructible. The prison suppressing steel trembled and flew back. The golden sword light also collapsed in an instant. Di Hongqing was also pushed back by the counterattack. This time, Di Hongqing retreated even further than Lu Ming. This caused Di Hongqing's expression to turn extremely ugly. The prison suppressing steel's bloodline is indeed stronger than the 9 dragons' bloodline. Lu Ming's heart stirred. Whoosh! At this moment, Di Hongqing's body seemed to have turned into a golden sword light, breaking through the void and rapidly approaching Lu Ming. Bring it on! Lu Ming's voice resounded from the prison suppressing steel. The prison suppressing steel glowed and charged towards Di Hongqing. Clang! The heavens and the earth exploded as the 2 figures retreated, then charged at each other again. Only the 2 figures could be seen clashing and exchanging blows. Explosions continued to sound in the sky. The shockwaves from their exchange grew more and more terrifying, causing the spectators to retreat further and further. In the blink of an eye, the 2 of them had exchanged more than 10 blows. Although Lu Ming had a slight upper hand, it was only a slight upper hand. He couldn't defeat Di Hongqing for the time being. Damn it! Di Hongqing roared in his heart. He was a peak second-layer martial emperor, yet he couldn't even defeat a young man at the spiritual god realm. He felt extremely humiliated. Go to hell, Emperor Sword! Suddenly, Di Hongqing roared. A golden battle sword appeared above his head. This battle sword wasn't condensed from true origin, it was a true battle sword, a true spiritual weapon. A Emperor spiritual weapon. It was an Emperor spiritual weapon. As soon as the golden sword appeared, Di Hongqing held it in his hand, and an extremely terrifying sword chi slashed towards Lu Ming. An Emperor spiritual weapon, what terrifying power! Lu Ming's heart couldn't help but tremble when facing this attack. An Emperor spiritual weapon was the Emperor of spiritual weapons. It was originally a weapon used by peak emperors, and only peak emperors could fully unleash the power of an Emperor spiritual weapon. Sovereigns and even low-level emperors couldn't unleash the full power of an Emperor's spiritual weapon. Therefore, the higher one's cultivation was, the stronger the Emperor's spiritual weapon would be. The power of a second-layer martial emperor using an Emperor's spiritual weapon would naturally be stronger than a first-layer martial emperor. Lu Ming had a feeling that this sword was extremely dangerous. Power, power! Lu Ming roared in his heart. More power from the third bloodline surged into Lu Ming's body, causing Lu Ming's heart to be filled with killing intent. But at this moment, he couldn't care less about it. The power of the third bloodline and the chaotic intent enveloped the surface of the prison-suppressing steel, causing the steel's power to reach an unprecedented level. Clang! The golden sword light slashed the prison-suppressing steel, causing it to tremble violently. It was like a meteor as it was sent flying, smashing a huge hole in space. The chaotic intent on the prison-suppressing steel was nearly shattered. The prison-suppressing steel constantly buzzed and became somewhat transparent. With this attack, the prison-suppressing steel's bloodline power was about to be exhausted. Di Hongqing's strength skyrocketed with the Emperor's spiritual weapon, and Lu Ming wasn't a match for him. Die! Di Hongqing charged towards Lu Ming. Not good, attack! In the north, Xiao Wan's face changed as he took a step forward. Slash! A pitch-black demonic saber appeared in Xiao Wan's hand. Demonic chi filled the sky as the saber light tore through space. A black saber light tore through space and slashed towards Di Hongqing. Emperor spiritual weapon. The demonic saber in Xiao Wan's hand was also an Emperor spiritual weapon. When Xiao Wan had caused chaos in the world, he naturally had an Emperor spiritual weapon. He had hidden it in a secret place and had only taken it out recently. Xiao Wan's attack caused Di Hongqing's face to change drastically. He couldn't be bothered to deal with Lu Ming. Di Hongqing spun around and slashed his golden sword at Xiao Wan. Clang! The two exchanged blows and were evenly matched. Kill! Xiao Wan charged towards Di Hongqing. Di Hongqing had no choice but to fight back. Huff! Lu Ming let out a long breath. A peak second-layer martial royal who had an Emperor spiritual weapon was too powerful. Lu Ming was still no match for him. Kill these bastards! Kill! At this moment, Yan Kuangtu, Chu Luo, and the barbarian emperor arrived and charged into the army of Di Tian Divine Palace. Not good. The Broken Mountain Martial Emperor and the Third Underworld Emperor's faces changed drastically. There were only two of them and they were no match for Di Tian Divine Palace. Die! Chapter 1323. As for Yan Kuangtu and Mo Yi, they charged towards the army of the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace. With a single move, many experts were killed. Large numbers of corpses fell from the sky. Now is the time. Kill our way out. In the White Jade Palace of the World Academy, an emperor gave the order. Kill. The experts of the World Academy also charged out and surrounded the army of the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace. Ah, not good. Run! Run! The army of the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace was instantly defeated and fled for their lives. It couldn't be helped. The emperors of the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace were all entangled. The experts of the World Academy, MOE, and the others were all emperors. Killing those below the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace was as easy as killing chickens. With a single slap, even Supremes would die. Chaos. The army of the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace was in complete chaos. They only cared about running for their lives. Some of the Supremes didn't even have the heart to continue fighting. They fled frantically. You can't escape. The emperors of the World Academy were targeting these Supremes. These Supremes were killed one by one. This was a one-sided massacre. The battle didn't last for long. More than half of the army of the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace was killed. The ground below was covered with corpses. Those who escaped were those with weaker cultivation. No one was interested in killing them. Those with weaker cultivation couldn't affect the overall situation much. In the sky above the World Academy, there were only 3 battlefields left. Xia Luan against Di Hongqing. The Barbarian Emperor against the Broken Mountain Emperor. Chu Luo against the 3rd Emperor of the Underworld. Let's end this quickly. Let's attack together. Lu Ming's voice rang out. At the same time, he charged towards the 3rd Emperor of the Underworld. At this moment, although Lu Ming's bloodline power was exhausted and he couldn't perform bloodline fusion, Lu Ming could still use the chaotic intent. Its power was still terrifying. Boom! Lu Ming approached the 3rd Emperor of the Underworld and punched out. This punch carried the concept of primal chaos, crushing the sky dome. No, the 3rd Emperor of the Underworld felt a fatal danger. He shouted in fear and transformed into the Chi of the Underworld, wanting to escape. But under the chaos concept, everything was futile. Lu Ming's fist landed and the 3rd Emperor of the Netherworld screamed miserably. The aura of the Netherworld dissipated and the body of the 3rd Emperor of the Netherworld reappeared. However, it had been torn into pieces and his spiritual deity had also dissipated under this punch. Hiss hiss hiss, Chu Luo and the other rulers gasped in shock. Ordinary first-layer martial emperors were so weak against Lu Ming that they were killed with a single punch. Scram! The Broken Mountain martial monarch was almost scared to death upon seeing this. But the Barbarian Emperor blocked his path. Mo Yi, Yen Kuangtu, and the others also attacked. Martial Emperor Pashan had nowhere to run. Lu Ming killed the 3rd King of the Underworld and then headed towards the Broken Mountain King. The Broken Mountain Martial Emperor was terrified. Di Hongqing, save me! The Broken Mountain Martial Emperor shouted and asked Di Hongqing for help. But Di Hongqing was busy fighting with Xia Luan and he could only protect himself. Xia Luan was a rank 3 martial emperor when he was at his peak. But he had been suppressed by the suppressing prison monument for 30,000 years and his origin had been damaged. That was why he could not recover to his peak. But he had rich combat experience. Although his cultivation level was the same as Di Hongqing's, he was still stronger than Di Hongqing. Di Hongqing could only protect himself. He did not have the time to save martial monarch Pashan. How dare you go against the emperor family? All of you will die. In the end, Di Hongqing roared loudly and exchanged a blow with Xia Luan. After that, he transformed into a ray of light and shot towards the distance. He had actually fled. Xia Luan did not chase after him. Although his combat strength was slightly stronger than Di Hongqing's, it was not enough for him to kill Di Hongqing. No, the Broken Mountain martial monarch screamed in despair when he saw Di Hongqing running away. Lu Ming was not far away from the Broken Mountain martial monarch and a cold murderous intent enveloped him. Don't kill me, I surrender, I surrender. The Broken Mountain martial monarch screamed. He had seen what had happened to the 3rd Emperor of the Underworld. If he did not surrender, he would die. Surrender is fine, but stop resisting and let us seal your cultivation. Lu Ming said. Lu Ming did not have to kill the Broken Mountain King. After all, the Broken Mountain King was a martial royal realm expert. If he surrendered and helped them, it would be beneficial for them. The Broken Mountain martial monarch was helpless and he could only give up resisting. He knew that even if he tried his best to resist, he would be killed. He would rather trust Lu Ming. Seal his cultivation. Lu Ming ordered. The barbaric emperor, Chu Luo and Mo Yi immediately joined forces and sealed the Broken Mountain martial monarch's cultivation. The battle had finally come to an end. The Emperor Divine Palace had suffered a crushing defeat. Almost all of the experts that they had sent had died. Only Di Hongqing had managed to escape. The third emperor of the underworld had died and the Broken Mountain martial monarch had surrendered. They had suffered a great loss. Lu Ming, thank you. The two deans of the World Academy came to Lu Ming and cupped their fists at Lu Ming to express their gratitude. Deans, you are too kind. Brother Kong Xian and I are friends. Lu Ming will not sit back and do nothing when the World Academy is in trouble. Lu Ming said. Brother Lu. Kong Xian and Sandalwood Fairy came together and bowed at Lu Ming. They had mixed feelings. They still remembered that not long after the Battle of Providence had ended, Lu Ming had changed his name to Lu Shaoqing and had just arrived at the Central Continent. At that time, Lu Ming's combat strength was similar to theirs. His cultivation was not even as high as theirs. However, in just a few years, there had been earth-shattering changes. Lu Ming's cultivation and combat strength had far surpassed theirs. He stood at the peak of the divine region. They might not be able to catch up with Lu Ming in their lifetime. Brother Kong, Fairy, how have you been? Lu Ming said with a smile. Then, he looked at the two deans of the World Academy and said, Deans, now that the world is in chaos, where do you plan to go? This. Sigh, we have not thought about it. The taller dean sighed. In World Academy, there were those who cultivated the martial path and those who cultivated the inscription path. The two deans also cultivated the martial path and the inscription path respectively. The taller deans were martial arts, while the thinner deans were inscription Dao. How about this? Why don't the World Academy form an alliance with us and go to the Northern Plains together? This way, we will be stronger and have more confidence to fight against the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace. Lu Ming suggested. The two deans of the World Academy looked at each other, then cupped their fists together and said, Lu Ming, actually, we have the same idea. That's good. Let's not delay. We will set off for the Northern Plains now. If we are late, the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace will come for us. Lu Ming said. Alright, let's set off immediately. Everyone can enter the White Jade Palace. The White Jade Palace is a secret treasure. The taller dean said. Alright. Lu Ming nodded, and everyone flew into the White Jade Palace. Chapter 1324. Ever since he saw Lu Ming's battle prowess, he had a plan in mind. In the past, he had formed an alliance with Lu Ming because he saw Lu Ming's potential. His condition for forming an alliance with Lu Ming was that Lu Ming could help him when he joined the Yuanlu sect in the future. He had been suppressed for 30,000 years. All of his family and friends had turned to dust. He no longer cared about the divine wilderness continent. In his eyes, there was only cultivation, realm, and the pursuit of higher martial arts. He had no interest in power. Therefore, when he saw Lu Ming's current battle prowess, he planned to slowly hand over the power to Lu Ming. He only needed to support Lu Ming. Lu Ming obviously thought of this too. He glanced at Xie Luan but did not say anything. Lu Ming now had friends, family, and loved ones. If he wanted to protect these people, he needed strength and power. Since Xie Luan wanted to give in, he would not be polite. The group entered the White Jade Palace. The White Jade Palace shone and tore open the space. They entered the alternate space and headed to the Northern Plains. Not long after, the space above the 100 Beast tribe in the Northern Plains cracked open and the White Jade Palace appeared. After a while, the meeting hall of the 100 Beast tribe was filled with people. Almost all of the upper echelons of the Northern Plains and the experts of the World Academy were present. Xiao Luan and Lu Ming were still sitting at the highest seats. Many people looked at Lu Ming with respect and awe. The news of Lu Ming's battle at the World Academy had spread. He had the ability to fight against a peak LV2 Martial Royal Realm expert and kill a LV1 Martial Royal Realm expert with ease. With such battle prowess, he stood at the peak of the Divine Wilderness continent and looked down on everyone. Moreover, Lu Ming was so young and his cultivation was only at the spiritual god realm. No one could predict Lu Ming's future and Lu Ming's potential. They looked at Lu Ming with respect and awe. Everyone, we've received news that DE of the Empyrean Divine Palace is going to form an alliance with the ancient sacred dynasty's Xia clan. After everyone was seated, an emperor from the World Academy revealed a shocking piece of news. As soon as this news came out, everyone gasped. What? The Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace wants to ally with the Xia clan? Is that true? This is troublesome. The great meeting hall was instantly filled with clamor. It's absolutely true. In a month's time, both sides will hold an alliance ceremony in the Holy City. The burly emperor from the World Academy said. The arena fell silent again. Everyone frowned, their faces solemn. Currently, the most powerful force in the divine region was undoubtedly the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace, which was led by DE. The Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace gathered the forces of the Eastern Wilderness and the Southern Underworld. Furthermore, some of the overlord forces in the Central Continent had also surrendered. Most importantly, there were 3 pinnacle experts in the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace. They were like 3 huge mountains that pressed down on everyone's hearts. Other than the Emperor Heaven Deity Palace, the other strongest forces were the ancient Saint Dynasty's Xia family and their allies, as well as the Heaven Suppression Army and their allies. Lastly, there was the Northern Plains. The Western Desert had always stayed out of the conflict and did not participate in it. Hence, they were excluded. Among the 4 great forces, the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace was the strongest. However, the Imperial Xia family had a legacy of 1,000,000 years. In terms of foundation, they were definitely the strongest. No one could see through them clearly, and they could not be underestimated. And now, these 2 formidable existences were about to join hands. How could the other factions stand a chance against them? Although the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace was strong, they did not have enough foundation. Hence, they had fewer emperors. Even with DE, there were 2 pinnacle martial emperors in the Southern Underworld, as well as some emperors who had surrendered. There were only slightly more than 10 of them. In terms of this, the Xia family and their allies, as well as the Heaven Suppression Army and their allies, had more emperors than the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace. Even in the Northern Plains, there were more than 10 rulers in total. Although the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace was strong, they did not have many emperors. The other forces could still contend against them. However, the alliance between the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace and the Xia family could make up for this shortcoming. At that time, they would be able to dominate the world. Regardless of whether it was the Heaven Suppression Army or the Northern Plains, they would not be able to contend against them. At the thought of this, everyone's hearts were heavy. Why would the Xia family and the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace form an alliance? Everyone could not understand. With the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace's current momentum, where would the Xia family stand when they unified the Divine Wilderness in the future? There must be some kind of deal that no one knew about. Now, what should we do? Someone asked. There was silence. No one spoke. Even Xiao Luan and Lu Ming were frowning. Let's talk about our opinions. Let's discuss it. After a while, Lu Ming spoke. That's right. Let's talk about it. Xiao Luan said. At that moment, everyone spoke one after another, expressing their own opinions. Someone suggested that they should take the initiative to attack. They wanted to attack one side first and fight a decisive battle with them to destroy the alliance between the 2 sides. However, someone immediately objected. The Emperor Heaven Divine Palace was strong. The 3 pinnacle forces were invincible. It was not wise to attack the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace. As for the Xie family, they were in charge of the Holy City. They had a long history and a deep foundation. The Holy City had never been breached before. Attacking the Xie family was also very dangerous. These people wanted to defend the northern plains. Everyone was arguing with each other. In the end, they finally reached a consensus to defend northern plains and increase their strength. Their hope was Xie Luan and Lu Ming. Xie Luan was originally a third-layer martial royal expert. However, his origin was injured and he needed time to recover. If they defended and did not attack, the situation would change when Xie Luan recovered to the third-layer martial royal realm. They would have the upper hand with their pinnacle forces. There was also Lu Ming. Lu Ming was still young and his cultivation was only at the consummate spiritual god realm. If Lu Ming's cultivation improved, wouldn't he be even stronger? He would be able to change the situation. Therefore, the final result of the discussion was to defend and wait to increase their strength. Lu Ming did not object to this. What he lacked now was time. As long as he had time, his pure spirit body would improve every day. His strength would also grow stronger. Furthermore, if he were to rank up to the 9 heavens supreme realm, the chaotic will would transform into the chaotic domain, allowing his strength to skyrocket. At that time, he would not be afraid even if he were to face a second-layer martial royal realm expert with a martial royal weapon. In the end, Lu Ming and Xie Luan decided on the plan. By the way, Brother Yan. At that instant, Lu Ming glanced at Yan Kuangtu and said, "Where are Senior Bai Shijin, Senior Du Songjue, and the others? Why haven't I seen them?" Logically speaking, Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and the rest would definitely take the cross-territory teleportation formation to discuss matters since Lu Ming had returned and such a major event had happened in the Divine Wilderness continent. However, ever since Lu Ming returned, they had not been seen. After Lu Ming spoke, Yan Kuangtu's expression changed tremendously. His gaze became complicated as he hesitated to speak. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He had a bad feeling about this. As he expected, when Lu Ming glanced at Xie Luan, the barbaric emperor, Chu Luo, and the others, he saw their complicated gazes too. They did not dare to look at Lu Ming. Chapter 1325. Brother Yan, what's going on? Lu Ming glanced at Yan Kuangtu and asked with a serious tone. His eyes were glowing as he stared at Yan Kuangtu. Yan Kuangtu's expression changed. In the end, he let out a long sigh and said, "Lu Ming, I didn't want to tell you for the time being, but since your combat power has reached such a level, there's no harm in telling you. The yin-yang formation of the Talisman Puppet sect has been destroyed by Martial Emperor De. What? Yan Kuangtu's words were like thunder that echoed in Lu Ming's heart. Lu Ming had heard a series of important news as soon as he returned. Then, he heard that the World Academy had been attacked, so he immediately rushed to the World Academy. He did not have time to ask about the Talisman Puppet sect, but he did not expect such a change. In Lu Ming's mind, the Talisman Puppet sect could still hold on for a while. Therefore, Lu Ming did not ask. A few months ago, Martial Emperor De attacked. The first was the Myriad Demon Valley, which was easily destroyed. The second was the Talisman Puppet sect. Although the yin and yang formation of the Talisman Puppet sect was powerful and had no problem blocking De alone, De and 2 other experts at the peak of the second LV of the Martial Emperor realm attacked together with Emperor's spiritual weapons. The yin and yang formation couldn't block them at all. At that time, Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and Master personally controlled the yin and yang formation in order to buy time for the others to move. In the end, most people moved to the northern plains, but Master and Bai Shijin fell into De's hands. Yan Kuangtu explained in detail. Most of the disciples of the Talisman Puppet sect, Lu Ming's parents, Hua Qi, and the others had moved to the northern plain through the teleportation formation. However, Supreme Nine's sons, Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and the others had fallen into De's hands. Commander Lu, don't worry too much. Since De did not attack at that time and spared their lives, I don't think he will kill them so soon. Someone advised Lu Ming. Indeed, sparing them instead of killing them must be useful. They should not be in danger for the time being. The others also advised. At this moment, many people's expressions changed, and a sound transmission jade talisman appeared in their hands. There must be some important news. Some of the higher-ups received the news at the same time. They scanned the jade talisman with their spiritual awareness. How could this be? Yan Kuangtu exclaimed as soon as he saw the sound transmission jade talisman. Because he was too excited, he could not suppress the Zhen Yuan in his body. A powerful aura erupted from his body, and a layer of burning flames spread out from his body, causing the temperature in the hall to rise sharply. Damn it! Damn it! Following that, the others also roared angrily. Their expressions turned ugly, including Xie Luan and the other rulers. What is it? What's going on? Lu Ming glanced around, and a bad premonition arose in his heart. He had just returned, so naturally, no one had sent him any news. General Lu, many people looked at Lu Ming, wanting to say something but hesitating. Lu Ming, Yan Kuangtu clenched his fists tightly and his eyes turned red. Those were the flames of anger. His body trembled slightly because of his anger. What's going on? Speak! Lu Ming shouted angrily. His eyes were like lightning, and his body emitted a powerful aura. However, everyone looked at each other and still did not speak. Let me see it for myself. Lu Ming moved and pounced on a supreme being. That supreme being did not have the slightest strength to resist. The sound transmission jade talisman in his hand was snatched away by Lu Ming. After Lu Ming scanned the contents of the sound transmission jade talisman with his spiritual awareness, his expression changed drastically. He became incomparably ugly, and his body emitted a cold murderous intent. De Xia Clan. Lu Ming spat out these words. They were so cold that it sent chills down everyone's spine. There was only one message in the jade talisman. Just now, the Xia clan of the ancient Saint Dynasty and Di Tian Divine Palace had jointly sent out a message. A month later, the Xia clan and Di Tian Divine Palace would hold an alliance ceremony in the sacred city. At that time, the traitors Xia Jiuyang, Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and others would be killed and their blood would be used as a sacrifice. This short message caused Lu Ming's murderous intent to reach its peak. Everyone's gaze fell on Lu Ming. This was because everyone knew that Lu Ming was the Zongzi of the Talisman Puppets sect and had a close relationship with Supreme Jiuyang. Lu Ming would definitely not sit back and do nothing. Xia clan, De. Since this is the case, then kill them. When the last word was spoken, Lu Ming's body emitted a strong battle intent. His gaze seemed to be able to pierce through the void and look at the sacred city that was billions of miles away. Lu Ming, you want to go to the sacred city? Don't be rash. This must be a scheme by De and the Xia clan. After the battle at the World Academy, De must have known your combat strength. He must be wary of you, so he sent out this message. His goal is to lure you to the sacred city and kill you. You must not be fooled. Xia Luan hurriedly said. Since this is the case, then let them do as they wish. A month later, I will make a trip to the sacred city. Lu Ming's gaze was cold as he said. No, General Lu. With our current strength, we are still no match for Di Tian Divine Palace and the Xia clan. That's right. Moreover, it is even more dangerous in the sacred city. The others tried to persuade Lu Ming. A month later, the sacred city would undoubtedly be a tiger's den. It would be extremely dangerous to go there. It's not impossible for us to fight. Originally, I wanted to wait for a period of time to prepare. Since this is the case, let's bring forward the battle. Lu Ming's voice was cold and his eyes were filled with determination. He had to save Supreme Jiuyang, Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and the others. Otherwise, even if he killed De and the others in the future, what would be the point? At this moment, outside the World Academy's Universal Jade Wall, the space suddenly rippled. Following which, a figure stepped out from the space. If anyone saw this, they would definitely exclaim. This was because he was Lu Ming. To be more precise, he was Lu Ming's second body. Lu Ming's second body had received the inheritance of the heavenly profound saint and had been cultivating the way of inscription. Now, Lu Ming had finally summoned him. De and the Xie clan, let's fight. Lu Ming's second body whispered with a cold light in his eyes. Following which, he took a step forward. The space automatically split open and the second body disappeared. In the meeting hall of the 100 Beast tribe. Bring forward the battle? General Lu, no, we are not strong enough. That's right. De and the other 2 experts of LV2 Martial Royal Realm alone are unstoppable. General Lu, this matter needs to be considered at length. The others tried to persuade Lu Ming. Most importantly, De and the other 2 experts of LV2 Martial Royal Realm had royal spiritual weapons. They were too strong. Ordinary Royal Realm experts would only be killed if they faced them. How could they resist them? A month later, in Sacred City, these experts would definitely all be present. They were waiting for Lu Ming. It would be unwise to fight with them at this time. Lu Ming raised his hand and the hall quieted down. Since we are going, we should fight a battle that we are confident in. Since we are going to save people, how can I, Lu Ming, sacrifice your lives for nothing? Chapter 1326. Greetings, Master. As soon as the figure appeared, he bowed to Lu Ming. An emperor. This is, the sea-subduing divine ape? It is indeed the sea-subduing divine ape. A commotion broke out in the main hall. Lu Ming was accompanied by an emperor and a sea-subduing divine ape. The sea-subduing divine ape was acting respectfully beside Lu Ming. Apparently, it had been subdued by Lu Ming. Although the crowd was amazed that Lu Ming had subdued a being like the sea-subduing divine ape, the appearance of the sea-subduing divine ape could not change the outcome of the battle. The sea-subduing divine ape was equivalent to having an ordinary emperor. Lu Ming smiled as his glabella lit up. Another figure appeared beside Lu Ming. This time, it was Tu Qian. Everyone's gaze fell on Tu Qian. Boom! A terrifying aura burst out from Tu Qian's body. Is that a puppet? It's really a puppet. What a terrifying aura. It is equivalent to a peak LV2 Martial Royal Realm. Gosh, it's true. Its aura is as strong as the chaotic sky divine apes. Tu Qian's appearance caused an uproar. Everyone was astonished. When everyone looked at Lu Ming, the awe in their eyes intensified. Not only was Lu Ming's combat strength powerful, but he also had such an expert by his side. Their combined strength was terrifying. He is Tu Qian. Everyone can see that he is a puppet. His cultivation is equivalent to a peak LV2 Martial Royal Realm expert. He can resist a peak LV2 Martial Royal Realm expert. Lu Ming said. But he has an Emperor's spiritual weapon. Someone said. Who says he doesn't have one? Lu Ming smiled as his palm glowed. A giant axe appeared in his hand and flew toward Tu Qian. That's an Emperor's spiritual weapon. Some people's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Lu Ming's methods were simply endless. First, there were powerhouses like the sea-subduing divine ape and Tu Qian. Now, he could even take out a ruler's spiritual weapon. Some people knew that the Emperor's spirit pagoda in Yan Kuangtu's hands belonged to Lu Ming. Now, Lu Ming had taken out another Emperor's spirit weapon. Many people were speechless. It was normal for Lu Ming to do incredible things. Lu Ming, Tu Qian can deal with an expert of the second layer of the Martial Emperor realm. I can deal with one, but there is still one left, Xie Luan spoke with a solemn expression. Leave the other one to me. Lu Ming said, his voice full of confidence. Xie Luan was slightly taken aback. The others were stunned as well. Although Lu Ming was strong, comparable to a peak second-layer Martial Royal Realm expert, Lu Ming was no longer a match for him once he had a Spirit King weapon. Moreover, it was obvious that Lu Ming did not have a suitable Spirit King weapon. An Emperor Spirit King weapon must be compatible with the user's attributes in order to unleash its power. Most importantly, even if Lu Ming had a suitable Spirit King weapon, it would be useless. The reason why an Emperor Spirit King weapon was so powerful was that the user could activate the realm of the Spirit King weapon. To activate the realm of the Spirit King weapon, one must at least comprehend the embryonic form of the realm. Lu Ming's cultivation had not reached the sovereign realm. Therefore, even if he had a suitable Spirit King weapon, Lu Ming could not unleash its power. In that case, how could Lu Ming block an expert at the peak of the second-level Martial Emperor realm? At this moment, Lu Ming raised his head and looked at the door. Buzz! At the door, the space rippled and a figure suddenly appeared. It was a young man with a slender figure and a handsome face. He was wearing a white robe embroidered with strange patterns. His temperament was ethereal, like an immortal. Lu! General Lu! What's going on? Most of the people were stunned as they stared at the figure at the entrance with their mouths agape. Yes, it was Lu Ming's second body, Ming Lian, at the door. Everyone's spiritual consciousness scanned Ming Lian's second body and they were even more shocked. Ming Lian's second body's aura was exactly the same as Lu Ming's. They were clearly the same person. Except for Yan Kuangtu and a few others, everyone was dumbfounded. How could there be two Lu Ming? Moreover, the aura of the Lu Ming who appeared later was too shocking. The vast pressure filled the hall and made everyone feel great pressure. A ruler, this was the might of a ruler. Yes, Lu Ming's second body had received the inheritance of the heavenly profound saint and cultivated hard every day. Finally, not long ago, he became a 9th-level inscriptionist and became an emperor. Ming Lian's second body had just broken through. Lu Ming had planned to let Ming Lian's second body stabilize for a while, but now he had to call it back in advance. He's me, and I'm him. Lu Ming's main body said with a smile. Ming Lian's second body nodded at Lu Ming and took a step forward. His body shrank rapidly and rushed into Lu Ming's glabella, sitting cross-legged in Lu Ming's sea of consciousness. Many people were dumbfounded and still hadn't come to their senses. Was this Lu Ming's doppelganger? Lu Ming actually had a doppelganger that was equivalent to an emperor? Lu Ming was becoming more and more unfathomable in everyone's hearts. Leave the other expert at the peak of LV2 Martial Royal Realm to me, Lu Ming said. However, Xiao Luan and the others still looked serious. Lu Ming, the sacred city is the headquarters of the Xia family. They have a deep and unfathomable foundation. No one knows what means they have, but according to my speculation, there are definitely many Emperor's spiritual weapons, and it's very likely that there are also people at the peak of LV2 Martial Royal Realm. Xiao Luan said. 30,000 years ago, Xiao Luan had fought with the Xia family, so he was very clear about the Xia family's methods. Back then, Xiao Luan had dominated the world with his cultivation at the peak of LV3 Martial Royal Realm. It could be said that no one could defeat him, but in the end, he was still suppressed by the Xia family. Although the Xia family seemed to have declined, they still couldn't be underestimated. Lu Ming nodded. This battle was very important, as it concerned everyone's lives and the future of the Divine Wilderness continent. It was something that they had to pay attention to. Moreover, even if we're not weak in terms of strength, the Xia family and the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace have teamed up, and they have many emperors. We're no match for them. Xiao Luan added. The others fell into deep thought. That was indeed the case. Their overall battle prowess was still a far cry from the Xia clan and the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace. In terms of strength, I still have a trump card. It won't be a problem for me to block two experts at the peak of LV2 Martial Royal Realm. As for overall strength, we'll have to find allies. Don't forget that the Divine Army is more anxious than us. Lu Ming said with a smile, as if he had a card up his sleeve. Xiao Luan's eyes flickered as he said, that's right. If that's the case, with the help of the Divine Army, we'll be able to fight. Lu Ming, I'll go with you to the divine army later. We'll decide the outcome of this battle. We'll definitely win this battle. Lu Ming's voice was filled with confidence. We'll definitely win. The others were influenced by Xiao Wan's words.